Well, another beautiful segue there by you because we are going to talk a little bit about Pulsechain and the updates and or lack thereof with it right now. Richard Hart had a pretty nice lengthy stream with Ivan on Tech. I believe it was last week, and I
Yep.
think maybe we should kind of start there. Most people that are listening to us, hearing us talk about this, have probably already heard, know what Hex is, know what Pulsechain is, or whatever. If you don't, it's basically the new fork of Ethereum that Richard Hart, the creator of Hex, has been in the midst of building now for a while.
A long time.
Yeah, we thought it would be out way earlier this year. It's still not. Now it's not looking like 2022. But yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff. And again, going back, I hate to continue to talk about the frustration, but it seems like there's a lot of frustration with some people and some more kind of reframing of what Pulsechain is about to be. A lot of people thought that it would get to market before ETH 2.0, which I have a point about in a minute. But before we do that, I want to ask you about this interview that Richard had on Ivan on Tech. What were your kind of thoughts on it, and what kind of good nuggets were there in that interview?
Well, I think because we are now forking ETH 2.0 or ETH, it's not 2.0 anymore. It's just Ethereum. There's a lot of good that can come out of that. I think we're going to get all the updates. I think once sharding actually happens, we'll get that. ZK rollups will happen. So any update that happens from the Ethereum developers, we will be able to easily roll out right onto to Pulsechain with no problems.
Mhm.
I also think they were having such a hard time with BNB, the Binance chain, that had so many bugs, and I think people were just truly unaware of how buggy that software really is. I had heard rumors before of validators not doing their job, and the chain would pause constantly, and I just think there were so many problems. So I don't have a problem with the whole situation of now we're forking ETH 2.0. I think it's probably the wiser move. I do think Richard probably will eat a little bit of crow for saying we were going to beat it to launch and um, a lot of things. But you have to kind of take a step back and say, when Hex was being designed, it literally took over 2 years to
Mhm.
get that thing to market and get launched. So for me and for many of the people in Hex then, it is what it is. And I understand when he says software is hard, it is to get it right. And now I think it will only make it faster to market. There is probably less to do. Now, I do know they want to make some tweaks. They still want to make it faster than Ethereum. I don't know
Mhm.
that the block size will be able to be 3 seconds like it would have been on the other one. And I also know that the validators are no longer a thing. The people that had bought some computer hardware to run their own validator node, that's not going to happen anymore, I don't think. Now, there will be validators with Ethereum, just like, but the whole setup is a little bit different.
Right.
To answer your question, I didn't hear too many nuggets. Other than that, it was mostly a lot of the other stuff we've heard before. Um, I don't know. Did you pick anything out that really surprised you that they talked about that you were kind of
I didn't watch
shocked?
it. I didn't watch
Yeah.
it. That's why. That's why.
Okay.
That's why I
Okay.
deferred to you now. Well, I think I saw like little blurbs of it, but I kind of just went and listened to what other people had to say about it that they picked out. But what the one thing I wanted to say about the ETH 2.0 thing is, I think over time people have misconstrued maybe it doesn't matter, but like at what point ETH 2.0 is ETH 2.0? Because right now the merge has happened. This technically isn't ETH 2.0. It was supposed to be after all these other steps happen. Like you said, the sharding, and literally they have a whole weird plan, the merge, the surge, the splurge. There's literally all these other steps. So really this is not ETH 2.0 in its final form. So that's one thing.
No.
I don't think that Richard has to feel, unless he always was insinuating that he just meant the merge, I don't know that he has to feel too bad that he didn't beat ETH 2.0 to the market necessarily. But again, most people thought Pulsechain would have been out by now. So I think
we did. But again, I think it all goes back to the amount of buggy software that they were working with. And the devs were having such a hard time to fix all that stuff, as we have spoken about many times. Richard didn't want to launch something that was half-assed, for fear of the constant, ridicule and scammer, all this. You know what I'm talking about. You had to launch a good solid product, and the eyes would have been on it with magnifying glasses. Had something come out that wasn't in good shape. The Binance chain could still be running the same way. They fixed most of the bugs, but if there were a couple, he's the one that is the scammer,
Right,
so
right.
I'm content waiting. I know the time of sacrifice that we made, the values that we got for that dollar is still way higher than what it's at now.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, it was a good investment at the time, and I'm content on getting a good solid product.
I do agree with you. I understand. It goes back to when you had your little reboot issue there. I was talking about the frustration of people with Zen and like the Hex community and stuff, and I think something like that comes from when you are maybe like over leveraged in something to where you feel like you have to defend it to no end. And I think with some of the people that are getting upset about Pulse, like we've talked about before, probably just sacrificed way more than they were willing to be without for this long. And that's why they still feel this way. Now, yeah, I get it. I mean, it's been over a year for the actual Pulse sacrifice. So yeah, I mean, if it were me, I definitely would have expected that you'd be getting that back by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes I think people do forget that it is called a sacrifice. And
that's right.
I know for myself that I do still, maybe incorrectly, expect that I'm getting something for that. But it was about like, if I never see that again, it won't really impact my life. That's what people should have treated it like.
Yep, I agree. We have to get out the definition for some folks, though, of sacrifice. And, yes, of course, we expect something. But the definition of sacrifice was you sacrificed for the freedom of speech, for freedom of movement, those type of things. That's what it was for. And, by the way, you're going to get some points. So I know it's a slippery slope, especially the wording on it, the way it was done. Obviously, that was for regulations purposes.
Right.
But yeah, the reason people are upset is because they put in more than they should have, hoping for a quick return by now. And you know what? Those are the ones that are going to sell when this thing launches, because they are now short on money.
Right.
So I'm kind of glad. I think it's kind of funny. I hope they do get out as quickly as possible.
Right.
And that way we can see a better trajectory up whenever this thing decides to run. So, and I really don't think we're too far away from launch. I still don't.
Okay.
I mean, we could launch by the end of the year. I know there's going to be a testnet V3 will be launched.
Right.
But because we're forking Ethereum, something that they've got the bugs worked out of it. It's clearly working well. The developers are on it, and I think it will actually speed it up, rather than if they had continued on the path they were on, we might not have seen it until third quarter next year.
Right.
So
yeah, that is definitely good news. Yeah, and that's something that I did forget to mention is we are actually going to see a V3 of the testnet, and that wasn't a thing before. I mean, that was recent news, correct?
There was mention of it at one point,
Right.
but But he still confirmed that there will be a V3. Why not make it right so we can bang on it and try and break it?
Right. Yeah.